into the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans, producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the very first reality reunion where we sit down with TV personalities who made their mark on the reality television landscape. Joining me in studio today is America's favorite bachelor, but bachelor no more, and now New York Times best-selling author, Mr. Sean Lowe.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for being here today, Sean.
Glad to be here.
I'm your host, Jeff Thurm. You can find me on social media at Jeff_Thurm. Don't forget to subscribe to AfterBuzz. Check us out on iTunes. Sean, where can they find you on social media?
Twitter, Sean Lowe 09, and Instagram, Sean Lowe KSU.
Great. And got the book out. Where can they find the book?
Anywhere books are sold. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Target, Walmart, you name it, you can find it.
Amazing. If you are a Bachelor fan, you've got to get this book. If you are a Sean fan, you've got to get this book. If you want to fall in love, you've got to get this book. Sean goes in depth into his time on reality TV, and there's some really cool behind-the-scenes stuff that all Bachelor fans have always wondered. So, got to check it out. Great read.
Thank you.
Now, you've had an incredible career. Before the book, before love, before fame, there was a simple Southern gentleman. Who was Sean Lowe before The Bachelor?
What a deep philosophical question. I don't know. He was just a normal dude. That's how I like to describe myself. I really, and I still consider myself to be a normal dude, but I was just a guy who was living life, had a good life, good friends, good family down in Dallas, and never imagined it would evolve into what it is today.
Yeah. And what kind of relationships were you in before being on The Bachelorette?
Just like any other guy in his 20s, I dated around and did some stuff like that, but nothing serious or long term. I never dreamt of getting married in my 20s. I'll put it that way, until I met Catherine, obviously.
And it was your sister that got you on the show, that applied to you?
Yeah, I never had any intention of doing reality TV, and my sister signed me up without telling me. And so I got a call one day from the casting director of The Bachelor, and she said, we're interested in speaking with you. And I was just dumbfounded. I said, "What do you mean?"
Well,
we received your application, and it didn't take me very long to figure out that my sister had submitted it. And I told her, I said, thanks for calling, but I have no desire to do this, cheesy reality show like The Bachelor. No way. But at the time, I was selling insurance, which is kind of the family business in my family. And I just did not like it. And so I go to work the next day, and I thought, this might be a chance for me to travel the world and take a free vacation. Right. So I'm going to call her back and do it. And that's what I did.
And you have your sister to thank today, right?
Yeah, I have my sister, although let it be known that she was actually paying me back because I introduced my sister to her husband. They've been married for 10 years now. He played football with me in college. Okay. And so she kind of owed me one. Okay. And I don't think she knew she would repay me in this way, but it all worked out.
Wow. So I'm sure at first you were a little like, "Come on, what are you doing? Signing me up for reality TV."
Oh, absolutely.
And now, what you have.
I think most guys won't admit to watching The Bachelor, although a lot of guys do.
Right.
But they will say like that. I would never do a show like that. It's so cheesy and so corny, and like I wouldn't do it. And that's exactly what I thought. And like I said, I just wanted the free vacation. Right. I never imagined I'd meet my wife on a show like that.
So what was your experience like? You're selected for The Bachelorette, and you go through this crazy casting process. I'm sure you're brought down, and all of a sudden you're just in this television show.
It's a really crazy world. One of my most vivid memories, because I had no experience with TV. I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. And so the first night, the night of the the opening show where all the limos pull up and the guys get out, I just remember there were helicopters swarming around. And then, do you know what a ghillie suit is? There's guys in ghillie suits, and those are the hunting suits where you blend in with the terrain. And there's guys in ghillie suits walking the perimeter of this mansion in North Carolina looking for paparazzi.
Oh my God.
And I was just thinking to myself, like, what did I get myself into? The whole thing seems so surreal.
And in your book, you talk about the producers went through a very important process as to who's going to be first and last out of the limo.
Yeah, well, so at the time, I really don't know anything, and
Right.
I'm just totally naive going into this thing. And so the night before, they have us 3 days before that opening night. They have you in a hotel, and they're just kind of prepping for that first episode. And so basically, you're confined to your room. Well, the night before the first episode, the producers all came in, and they one by one, and they would just introduce themselves and make themselves known. And then one of them told me, said, "Hey, we're going to have you first out of the limo, and you know, traditionally, we think that the first guy is a guy that could go really far."
Wow.
So I didn't know much, but I was certainly. What's the word I'm looking for? I was honored.
You're honored, right?
Yeah.
And as a Bachelor fan, I mean, that's it. We know the show has to be produced a little bit or somewhat, but like those are the little things that I think readers especially really enjoy getting. Those little like tricks, knowing the order of the limo actually is kind of thought about.
Yeah. I mean, this show, it's been on for how many years? Like 13 years. And they've got it down to a fine science. They've mastered their formula over the years. And so they're on top of their game.
Yeah.
And to the show's credit, it's not a scripted reality show like so many are. They never told me what to say or how to feel, who to keep, who to send home. But they do little tricks like that to make the show entertaining, and there's all types of production tricks. You know, there has to be. They might tell the guys, you know, so often you'll see the guys or the girls sitting on a couch and they're talking about someone specifically, and well, you know, as that's the guy's real feelings when they're saying this stuff, but the producers might say, they might lead them with the question, you know, what do you think? You know, so and so and so and so are doing on their date today, and it just gets the guys talking about that. So it's produced a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to be.
Yeah.
So you go through the show, you fall in love with Emily, and then you're eliminated.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I think the falling in love part is it's really tricky,
Right.
Because Bachelor creates such an environment,
Totally.
where you're disconnected from the world. You don't have to worry about work. You don't have to worry about personal responsibilities, family, friends, all that stuff. It's just you in this environment, and you have all these guys that are focused on one girl. So
The natural competition.
I think, you know, it's kind of tricky because you can almost fool yourself into believing, like, I feel this way towards somebody. It's really hard to explain.
Yeah.
Because the feelings that I had towards her and the feelings that I had towards Catherine were totally different.
Right.
Like, Catherine, I just knew, like, she's got to be my wife.
Right.
And I think it was more on the Bachelorette, like, hopeful, like, I want this to be, because I guess I had reached a point in my life where I was like, okay, I could see myself settling down, and I think she has the things that I'm looking for, when in fact, I don't know if they were actually all there.
And you're put into scenarios that kind of, like, curate love. I mean, being on vacations and
100%.
everything.
I mean,
how can you not fall in love?
You're doing things that no one ever gets to do. I mean, you're taking helicopter rides, and you're visiting the most beautiful countries in the world, and like I said, you're disconnected from your everyday life, and you don't have real world problems. So yeah, it absolutely is just, it's a place that creates romance.
Yeah. So at the time, what seemed like love, looking back, wasn't so much.
Yeah, I think it was a hopeful feeling. Like I wanted it to be there, and thank God it didn't work out, because if it did, I know it would have been just a massive train wreck. And I mean, I know with certainty I was supposed to be the Bachelor so I could meet Catherine, and I strongly believe that.
So at what point were you then asked? You know, you're eliminated from the show. At what point are you then asked to become the Bachelor?
I think it was about 6 weeks afterwards, which is really weird, because you come off this experience that didn't end up so great, and you just have a bad taste in your mouth, and then the producers call you up, say, hey, what do you think about being the Bachelor? And so I told them, I said, man, I don't know. You know, it was fun at parts, but that took a toll on me. And so they said, well, you know, we want you to be the Bachelor, so think about it and call us back at the end of the week. And so I did, and I called my parents, because my parents are good people, and they can kind of speak wisdom into my life. And I thought my parents would say, nah, you gave it a try, but it's probably best you skip this one. And they actually said the opposite. Both of them said, you know what? We feel like God opened this door for you. You might as well walk through it.
Wow.
And then that just resonated with me. I was like, yeah, this is a chance I'd be a fool to pass up. Let's give it a try.
And so going into it, what were some of your biggest fears?
Biggest fear probably was that I would just waste my time, or that I'd get raked over the coals like so many bachelors do. You know, so many bachelors on The Bachelorette, they're fan favorites because they only get limited screen time.
Right.
And so people really latch on to them, and they're like, oh, I love, like, Farmer Chris, for example.
Right.
Like, I love Farmer Chris.
Prince
you know,
Farming.
he's got it all. He's so humble. He's this, he's that. But then when you're the Bachelor, people start to pick out your flaws because you're on screen so much, and people start to get annoyed with you, or you might say something, put your foot in your mouth.
I wonder who you might be talking about.
And then I think I use Chris as an example. I think he's done pretty well for himself, but like I know Ben Flanick and Brad and especially Jake Pavelka, they went into The Bachelor being really well liked. And then after The Bachelor, not so much.
Well, people were pretty excited about Juan Pablo.
Juan Pablo especially. You know, everyone.
I think he's the poster boy for this.
He had the Latin flavor, and
Right.
he was, I guess, girls would describe him as sexy and all this, and yeah, that did not end well for old Juan Pabs.
So, I mean, your good guy image was very important to you. Your integrity was very important to you. Why was that? I mean, you just didn't want to get the wrong label.
I just know who I am as a man, and I did going into that. And so I didn't want to do anything that would maybe dishonor my family or make people view me in a different way, because I'm very proud of the reputation I have, and I don't want to harm that, you know. And I also have a life outside the show, whether it's in business dealings or whatever.
Right.
Like, I want people to look at me and still have a certain amount of respect for me.
Right.
And so, you know, the show can put you in some pretty precarious situations, too. I mean, obviously, it's all about romance, and so they're throwing hot tubs, and, you know, in past seasons, they've gone skinny dipping and stuff like that. And, like, I just didn't want to cross those boundaries where it would make me look kind of sleazy.
And I think some of that, I mean, and then your faith, obviously, you got kind of deemed the Virgin Bachelor.
Yeah, that all came after the show. So it was never discussed on the show, which is weird because so often, like this season, Chris's season, when a girl was a bachelor, that's all they want to talk about, right? But I never wanted to make a point to talk about it. That was just a decision I made in my life, which I was proud of. But after the show, I think somewhere along the line, a reporter must have asked me, like, how's our sex life? And I just answered it honestly. I was like, we're going to wait until marriage. And, you know, that's all a part of my faith, of course. And that's something that, like I said, I'm not going to back down from. I'm proud of it. But from that moment on,
The media went crazy.
oh my gosh, that's all anybody can talk about. And still, 2 years later, people want to talk about it. So not only tabloids and talk shows, but even the more respectable outlets like Good Morning America, that's all people want to talk about.
So going back to you being the Bachelor, it's your first night there, and everyone's arriving in the limos. You're where Emily was standing. What's going through your head?
Oh man, it's such a bizarre feeling.
Yeah.
It's really exciting because you don't know what's coming out of the limo.
Right.
I mean, you don't know who you're gonna meet, or
I like that you said what's coming out of the limo, because I think that's fair.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of girls pulling a lot of stuff to try to get your attention, so you don't know what's coming out. But it's just a really weird feeling. You're standing there, and for the first time, it's like you're the shot caller.
Right.
You're gonna kind of direct the ship, and it was also weird because you hear the limos pull up, and you see them pull up, and you hear the girls kind of squealing inside. And you're like, what? Sounds like an animal in there. Like, what is coming out of that limo? And then one by one, of course, some girls are normal, and some girls are pulling out all the stops.
You had some great ones.
We had Robin. She tried to do a backflip and landed on her head.
Poor girl, but like, what a way to break the ice.
Yeah, it's an icebreaker. There was the girl in the wedding dress,
Lindsay.
and
In that moment, as a viewer, I'm saying this girl's going home tonight. There's
in my head, that's kind of what I
there's
thought.
no way a crazy girl comes in a wedding dress and is going to make it tonight.
She was really kind of comparable to who's the girl on Chris's season that started with the dirty joke?
Caitlyn.
Yeah. It's kind of comparable to that. Like, it's so bold, you almost respect it.
Right.
Whereas some of them are kind of just cheesy and stupid, but it's so bold, it's like, okay,
Right.
I'll give you points for your boldness there.
And I mean, at no point did I ever think that the girl walking out in the wedding dress was going to make it far, let alone to the very end.
Yeah. Weird.
Crazy. But that just goes to show you can't really base everything off first impressions, which
Yeah.
we learned with the first impression rose.
That's true. Although sometimes you can.
Yeah.
Oh, first impression rose. Yeah, Tierra.
Yeah.
A lot of crazy in that one.
Well, you're only seeing what you're seeing.
Well, sure, and everybody's going to put their best face on that first night.
Right.
And, well, not everybody, because there was also the girl, Ashley, who was just fall down drunk, so she didn't put her best face on. But for the most part, everyone wants to make a great first impression, and so it's really hard. It takes weeks and weeks to kind of figure out some of these girls. Tierra's a prime example.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, when the show was airing on TV, everyone would come up to me like, "You're so dumb. How could you not see how crazy Tierra is? What are you doing?"
Right.
But she wasn't crazy around me. She was only crazy around the women, and I'm not privy to what goes on with them. So I was in the dark. It just took me a lot longer to catch on.
And then it's always a hard part because there's the girls want to tell you what's happening, but then no one wants to be, the tattletale, and that's always a weird position.
Yeah, exactly. Because no girl wants to be that girl who's tattletaling, because it never works out well for that girl.
Exactly.
So it does put them in a weird position.
Yeah. But they have to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But,
and thinking back, I can also remember even the producers, they don't let you in on anything. Obviously, they know about the drama, but they're not going to fill me in. And then they would say things like, "Yeah, I don't know why the girls don't like her. She seems really nice." And this is the producer who knows how crazy she is. So that's another example. The producers just kind of lead you into some of that stuff.
So you have 26 girls in front of you. The very first night. There's no way you remember every single person's name.
Not a chance, no. And I'm terrible with names to begin with. So the way it works
This is the Bachelor secret everybody wants to know.
Yeah, so the Bachelor, there's a lot of producers that work on the show, a lot. But there's one that's designated to be with the Bachelor at all times. And so they all have earpieces, and they can hear the conversations that are taking place because everybody, the girls and me, are all mic'd. And so the producer that's with me, her goal or her job is to take notes. And so if I'm sitting down with Catherine's telling me a story about whatever, her work back home in Seattle. This producer's taking notes and saying, "Oh, Catherine's, telling you about her job in Seattle." So the next time I go to meet with Catherine, maybe later that evening, the producer would say, "Hey, you're about to go talk to Catherine." So she'd give me her name, and they say, "Remember she told you about her job in Seattle?" So it's really awesome. It's like a really great wingman who's just like there to make sure you don't slip up and say the wrong name.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But so when it comes time for the actual elimination, actually, let's go back to when you're actually talking to all the women at the cocktail party. Every episode, it looks like a constant catfight to get your attention or the Bachelor's attention. Constantly, people pulling everyone away. How is that working in production-wise?
A lot of that is really genuine because the girls are so desperate to get just a few minutes, so they are kind of catfighting amongst each other and trying to swoop in and get some time. And there are also times, and maybe they handle the girls a little bit different than the guys. I remember on The Bachelorette, the guys are much more laid back, like, "Dude, you want to talk to her? Go ahead," and there wasn't so much of that. So on my season, I remember on The Bachelorette, the producers would be like, "All right, Sean, you ready to go talk?" And so sometimes they'll just kind of push you into it, and I don't think I ever fought anybody, but I know for a fact the girls did.
It's just always it seems so awkward. I mean, they walk up and they're like, "Hey, do you mind if I cut in?" And you can't say no.
Yeah, it's really awkward, especially if you're in the middle of like a serious conversation and then you get some drunk chick that's like, "Hey, can I talk to Sean?" It's just, it's not good for anybody.
And speaking of the drunk chicks or whatever, it's hard for us to know how long an evening really is taking place. With Chris this season, we even saw one of the eliminations take place with daylight.
Yeah.
A girl was eliminated in the dark, and then her interview was in the daytime.
I've never seen that, but it doesn't surprise me at all because obviously those rose ceremonies and cocktail parties, the more girls you have, the longer it takes.
Right.
So the first couple are the longest. And I remember we wrapped up right around 6 a.m. So right as the sun's coming up is when I was heading back to my hotel. The girls were going to sleep. And so I guess Chris lasted a little bit longer. But, it takes so long because you have 26 girls. You have to have conversations with all of them. And then you have
have conversations with all of them.
Yeah, I don't think I missed a single girl to my knowledge. And then on between that, you have to do your what they call ITMs, which are when they cut to a shot of you and you're talking about a specific girl, like,
kind of like the confessional.
Yeah, I really enjoyed my time with Catherine. I think there might be something there. So that takes a big chunk of the time. And then the rose ceremony on TV, it doesn't last very long, and the Bachelor's calling the name, Rachel, Jennifer, Ashley, just boom, boom, boom. But in reality, it takes a long time because there's about 3 or 4 minutes between each rose that's given out. Because the cameras have to reposition, get ready for the next girl. And, man, it just takes a really long time. So I remember those first few cocktail parties just wore me out.
And you're standing there and you go, Catherine. And then you're just like, which one's Catherine?
I am proud to say I remembered Catherine, but there were some other girls that I did not remember.
Right, so now you're going to say Lindsay, and the girl's going to walk down.
So that's the other thing. People always ask me, like, how do you remember the order? So the trick behind that is I would say 3 names, and then I would leave the room, and the producer would give me the next 3 names. And then, of course, they give you the order. Because the girl that's always on the verge of, is she staying, is she going, she's always the last one to be called. So the producers create the order.
That's not shocking, but it's nice to know that you do actually have full say over who's staying.
Yeah. They never tell you who to cut, who to keep. The only example of maybe where some of that takes place is, like, in the beginning weeks, I know there may be 8 or 10 girls that they're just, it's not matching up. They're not going to work out long term. But you can only cut 4 this evening. Right. And so the producers might say, well, you might as well keep her until next week because she's fun to be around, and then cut her next week. But that's it.
So you're going through this experience, and you obviously have to have the one-on-ones and the group dates. And how are each of those selected? Are you picking each one-on-one?
Good question. They are suggested a lot of the times. So the producers might say, what do you think about going on a one-on-one with so-and-so? For whatever reason, they have a plan. Right. We want to feature her in this first episode. Right. And so usually I just went along with that. Now, if I didn't want to, I could always say, no, I'd rather not, and I'd rather, take her on the one-on-one. But I was just more, I'll go with the flow. So they did suggest most of them.
Yeah, because as a viewer, it's interesting to watch. We obviously have to believe that you're falling in love with as many women as possible. So it's interesting to watch over a whole season how Catherine wasn't until week 6. Yeah. And it's bizarre to see you fall in love with all these people.
Well, that's the thing. So fall in love might be a strong term, but I definitely, you develop certain feelings because, hey, I like this girl for this reason. She's a nice girl and she has these qualities. And I like this girl because she's a nice girl. She has these qualities. So you certainly have feelings for multiple people, but that's because in my case, I went into it and I said, okay, I'm going to compartmentalize each relationship. And so when I'm with Catherine, I'm going to give Catherine my undivided attention. I'm only going to focus on her. And so I start developing feelings for Catherine. And then go to the next date and I do the same thing. So then once you get towards the end, you're like, uh-oh, there's a handful of girls here. And I think they're all good girls for different reasons. But now I'm in a tight spot because I don't know where my heart is leading me. So it took me a little while to figure out there at the end.
I'm sure. And then the hometown visits come. And what were you looking for in each of their hometown visits?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I was just looking to see if I would match up well with their family, which is funny because by all appearances I would not match up well with Catherine's family. She just comes from a very different family. She comes from a family of all women. They live in the Northwest, just very different from what I'm used to. I've got this big family down in Dallas, and actually, Catherine's mom, if you guys can remember, she wouldn't even give me her blessing because I think I posed it like, if I figure out that I want to spend the rest of my life with your daughter, could I have your blessing in proposing? And she didn't give me a straight answer. I think her answer was something like, well, I don't know. That's a question for Catherine, I suppose. I think her mom was just super skeptical about the whole thing. So I think I went into it asking myself, can I match up with this family? And then I probably chose the family that I matched up with least. but I've grown. Obviously, I've grown to absolutely love her family, and they're incredible.
And not to overuse the word dramatic, as Chris Harrison might, to explain each episode, but one of your hometown visits was pretty dramatic.
Yeah, Dez's. That was really bizarre.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about Dez. I'm going to tell you guys this, and it's really, really weird. It kind of freaked me out. So her brother, everyone remembers her brother as just being this jerk who accused me of being a playboy. And I had heard earlier in the season, and this didn't make air, she said, my brother has spiritual gifts. Which it strikes me as really weird, okay?
Yeah.
I've never met anybody with spiritual gifts, and I'm not going to doubt they exist.
Right. But what does that mean?
I believe maybe some people do, but what does that mean exactly?
Right.
So I walk in to Dez's house, and it's just me and Dez there for a while. Then her family comes in. And I remember thinking in my head, the feelings just weren't there for Dez, and I could tell that she liked me a lot more than I liked her. And I think maybe she was trying to hold my hand or put her arm around me, and I just wasn't reciprocating any of that affection. And I remember consciously thinking about that, okay? And so I go out and I had the first conversation with her brother. And, of course, the producers kind of set it up like, hey, why don't you guys go talk in the backyard? And everything was great. I thought I knocked it out of the park with him, and I thought, all right, the brother's on my side. You know, he thinks I'm a good guy, I'm a respectable guy, all that stuff. And then he comes out later, and the producers did not tell him to do this, and he said, you know, I just went inside and I reflected on a few things, and I realized my sister was showing you a lot more affection than you were showing her. And
picked up on it.
That led into the whole Playboy thing. So I don't know if that was his spiritual gift, but I thought it was extremely weird because I had not, between the first conversation we had and the second, I had not spent any time with him or been around Dez in front of him. And so for him to go in and reflect on it, and it kind of freaked me out.
He may have picked up on something.
I think he did.
And then that led to the dramatic confrontation.
Yeah. Well, he got me so heated. I mean,
yeah, of course.
He called me a playboy, so that you're really questioning my integrity there. Like, hey, I'll admit the feelings I have towards your sister are not as strong as the feelings she has for me, but I'm not a playboy by any means, so I'm not going to let anybody question that. Now,
do you think that confrontation led to Dez being chosen to be the Bachelorette?
No.
Really?
I think she was the best candidate that they had.
Because as a viewer, when that was happening, I was like, this is such a good lock-in. We now feel bad for her. She's heartbroken because of her family.
It was a very dramatic exit, and I know a lot of people really latched on to Dez, and people felt really bad for her, which they should have because she poured her heart out. But I think she was the best candidate to be the Bachelorette. She was kind of the only choice, the only logical choice.
So moving on, we get to Thailand, and it's the biggest day of your life. You've narrowed it down to 2, and you're still a little bit unsure as to who you're going to pick?
Well, so I knew on the flight over to Thailand, I knew like Catherine was the only one that was always on my mind. And like I said, I had feelings for both because that's just kind of the nature of the beast. You create those feelings for both along the way. But then once I got to Thailand, I was like, all right, I got to really sit down and figure out my headspace. So, I'm coming up on what could be the biggest decision of my life. And once I really sat down and started thinking about it and praying about it, like I knew Catherine was the only one that I was constantly thinking about. And the thing I always say is that these dates are so long. They're only 15, 20 minutes on TV, but a lot of times you're waking up at 6 in the morning and they last until midnight. You're just shooting these dates all day, and it's exhausting. So at the end of the day, the one thing I want to do is I just want to get back to my hotel room and get some rest. But with Catherine, it was the opposite. Like I didn't want to leave her. I never did. No matter how exhausted I was, I didn't want to leave her. And so as I started to kind of sift my way through my own thoughts, it became pretty clear that Catherine was the one for me.
She was the one that, was the most fun. You guys always giggled, and it was so funny because at first I don't think we saw that side of you. Your goofy side, your silly side wasn't necessarily, I think, a main character trait of yours, but Catherine really brought it out.
Yeah, well, that's what attracted me to let me start that sentence over. That's what attracted me to her from the very beginning, is she was just so fun, and she had such a great energy about her.
Laugh.
And so it took a while for the romantic feelings to come in, but from the very first night, I was like, this girl's fun. I just want to be around her, you know. And I didn't even know if there was going to be romance, but I knew, like, I want to be friends with her because I find myself constantly smiling when I'm with her.
And going back to your very first your one-on-one, I mean, not everything was going right. The blizzard.
Yeah, we had
your bright pink face.
Our first one-on-one date in Canada, and we spent it on a giant glacier in Glacier National Park. And a big snowstorm blew in, which was unexpected. And I was just getting pelted in the face with ice. And you know me, I'm fair-skinned, so my face turned like cherry red. And she made the most of it. Like, the conditions were awful, but she was still having fun, and we still just had the best time. And so that said a lot about her to me, is that, you know, this girl, she doesn't need these fancy romantic dates. Like, we're having a blast messing around in a snowstorm. That was the first indicator that there's something special there.
And in the book, you talk about some other moments that you guys had that weren't necessarily on camera, which were hard to get the producers to agree to.
Yeah, so towards the very end, before I was going to propose, I still had some lingering questions. And I say that because I knew in my heart I was in love with her. I did not question that. And my mind was telling me, like, are you crazy? This is a reality show. You're going to propose on a reality show to a girl you've spent limited time with? I mean, you're nuts. And, you know, I had certain things that I called non-negotiables. You know, I needed someone who was going to be someone who would challenge me spiritually in my life. And I just had a whole long list of things that I needed in a wife. And so I told the producers the night before, I'm kind of freaking out. I was like, I got to talk to Catherine. And, of course, they don't want any interaction off camera.
Right. What doesn't happen off camera doesn't happen.
And so I'm pleading with the executive producer, and he's always behind the scenes. So I rarely even interacted with him. But he came to my hotel room and was like, just give me 10 minutes. And he's like, no, I can't do that. And I just pleaded with him. I was like, please, I need 10 minutes. I got to get some of these questions answered. And so reluctantly, he finally agreed to let me have 10 minutes with her. But he said, you have to promise me that you will not give her an inclination one way or the other if you're going to propose to her or not. I was like, I promise. And so I go into her hotel room, catch her totally off guard. She's just gotten out of the shower, no makeup on. She's in a towel. And she's just kind of stunned, and she has this deer in the headlights look. And I have this whole list of things that's like, all right, I think it's important, you know, this is what I need out of a wife, A, B, C, D. This is what I wanted to do. You know, this is how I want her to challenge me as a man to make me a better husband. And I list all these things, and she's just like, like just totally stunned.
It is so bizarre. You are about to propose the next day.
I know.
And less than 24 hours before, you have to have a real conversation.
It doesn't make any sense at all. But you know what? She agreed to everything. She said, I want to be that woman for you. And she has been all of that and so much more. So she held up her end of the bargain.
And that moment where you got down on one knee and Catherine, I mean, was shaking and said yes and was I mean, I rewound that like millions of times. Like, it was such a real moment. And
it was real. And the thing that I'll always remember, of course, they have the beautiful backdrop and, you know, flowers and this little pond, and it's in Thailand, and you have the sun setting in the background. All these amazing things, but she is shaking and like quivering when I get down on one knee. Like, she's so excited. And
it was beautiful.
And I remember she, of course, throws her arms around me, and I tell her I love her after asking her to marry me. And she doesn't even realize the ring on her finger. And it's like a couple minutes later, she's crying and everything else. And I ask her, I was like, did you even see the ring in it? You know, but that's who she is. She doesn't care about this really expensive Neil Lane ring. She's honestly head over heels in love with me. And that's just a testament to who she is. But that was awesome. And a side note that's really funny, the producers told me later, in the earpiece, they were saying, medic stand by, because we think she might pass out. Because she was shaking and quivering so much, they really thought she was going to hit the deck.
Oh my gosh. And now, that was the first time you had ever said that you loved her.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the first time she said she loved you.
No, it wasn't, but it was the first time I heard it. So the story behind that is, after our last date in Thailand, apparently she'd whispered it in my ear. I didn't pick up on it, so I didn't even acknowledge it because I didn't hear it. And so she's really upset after I don't say anything. She just tells me she loves me, and then I just say, okay, good night. You know? So I think I may have made her distraught, but it wasn't my fault. She just didn't say it loud enough.
And I mean, this is the kind of stuff, guys, that is in the book that you've got to read and check out. It's just so cool to get these behind the scenes stuff. But only one person heard it, right? Only like one sound engineer.
One sound guy, and those microphones pick up everything. So the sound techs, you could whisper as just as quietly as possible. The sound guy's going to pick it up. So he heard, but I didn't hear it, even though she had whispered it right in my ear.
Oh, that's so painful. So you are taken off on an elephant ride. You just proposed.
Yeah.
Everything is perfect.
Yeah, that's what I've been saying lately. I've done a lot of public speaking, and I always say, we got engaged and we rode off into the sunset in Thailand on the back of an elephant. So to all you guys out there, I dare you to top that.
Yeah.
Because you can't top it. So that's just a fairy tale way to get proposed or to get engaged, and then the real world starts.
Well, and then you come back off the elephant. And then there's like, all right, it's a wrap. Get your mics.
Yeah, so that's really weird. You've been mic'd up for 3 months, and then they finally say, all right, take your mics off. Like, what?
Like, you got off the elephant, and they were. What was the first thing out of the producer's mouth? Do you remember?
Well, we get off the elephant, and we did.
Probably your ITMs. Right?
We literally did one ITM together, which you never do them together. It's like, whoa, we get to do this together. And then they say, take off your mics. And I'm blown away. It's like, are you serious? Like, we're done?
It's done.
And we were done. And
like,
so,
are we allowed to still be in love? Or are we done too?
We were allowed to stay. We had this beautiful house in Thailand, which we were filming at, and they allowed us to stay there for 3 additional days. Us and a couple of the producers who were actually married. So the 4 of us were in this house, and we got to just enjoy being together for 3 days. And then after that, it's really sad because she has to fly home to Seattle and I had to fly home to Dallas, and we can't let anybody know that we're actually together.
And you have to pretend like nothing happened.
Yeah.
But the producers did let you guys kind of have a little Bonnie and Clyde action going on.
Yeah. So that was our, what do you call those, code names? Bonnie and Clyde.
Alias. Yeah.
So, our alias. So anytime they would email us or
Operation
whatever,
Happy Couple?
it was always Bonnie and Clyde. And so every 2 weeks, they would take Bonnie and Clyde out to LA. They'd put us up in a house where, they told us, listen, you can't leave the house. We'll have someone come and bring you food, anything you want, but you can't leave the house because keeping the secret to them has become such a chore, with all the spoilers out there and everything. So they really tried their hardest to keep us a secret. And when you're engaged, all you want to do is be together and tell everybody, hey, I'm engaged, I'm in love, we're going to get married. And it's really hard to be separated and only get to see your fiance every 2 weeks.
But are you in between that? You're communicating?
Yeah, I mean we're FaceTiming and texting and calling constantly. But when you've just fallen in love with someone, you need to see them. You need to be with them in person.
And so then eventually, the season starts to air, and Catherine is watching you on dates with other women.
Yeah. And to Catherine's credit, she handled it all extremely well. I think she has a good understanding of kind of everything that I went through led me to her, and she understood that very well. She never gave me a hard time about anything. And with that said, she watched it in Seattle, I watched it in Dallas, and we talked about it, but we didn't really get in depth about it. And I think that's probably the best way to handle it.
And then you guys decide to do the televised wedding.
Yeah.
Which, first of all, thank you for sharing that moment with us. I mean, as fans of both of you guys, that was great.
Well, we were really happy to, for multiple reasons. I think first and foremost, the one thing that's really special about The Bachelor is people feel invested in your relationship. They feel like they know you, and they've been there from day one. And so we have so many supporters who every day stop us still today and just say, we're rooting for you guys, and we're here for you, and we love you guys. So it was really cool to be able to share our most special moment with everyone who's been with us from the beginning. So that's kind of the soft, gushy part of it.
Nice.
From a guy's perspective, you get an awesome 5-star wedding for free, which isn't bad either,
I flew her whole family out.
Yeah, and that's and my family as well. And it kind of worked out really well because, first of all, there's no prettier place than Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
But, her family being from Seattle, mine in Dallas, that's a pretty good meeting point for the two families. And to be able to fly all the family and friends out and put them up for free, it was really just a special time.
But the media still had there's one thing the media was waiting for.
Oh, the honeymoon suite.
What's going to happen after?
It's not even the media.
It was The Bachelor.
The Bachelor.
Yeah.
They had the honeymoon suite and... just when you think they're on your side, they go and do something like that.
It became all about that.
But it was honestly fine with us. We have a sense of humor about it. Like it is funny.
Right.
Some aspects of it are funny. I just wanted to make sure the camera was out of that suite when it actually went down. But of course, after that, everyone wanted to know how was the wedding night.
Right.
Just more sex questions.
Of course. And it's been just over a year.
Yeah, we celebrated our 1-year anniversary January 26th.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And we went back to the same hotel where we got married in Santa Barbara.
Oh, wow.
And we just spent 4 days, just the two of us, resting, relaxing, riding bikes on the beach, just having an amazing time. So it was really a special way to bring in the first anniversary.
And I do have to ask, are there plans to expand the family anytime soon?
Yeah, the $1 million question. Soon, that's a relative term. Right now, we're really happy being newlyweds, and we travel a bunch, and we're just enjoying life as it stands now. But we will have a family. Not this year, maybe next year. Well, who knows?
So in the very beginning of the interview, I asked you who was Sean Lowe before The Bachelor. Who is Sean Lowe after The Bachelor?
The same guy.
Same guy.
I'd like to think I'm the same guy.
Yeah.
Honestly, I know. Here's the thing. I can't really have a big head or anything because I'm just The Bachelor. It's not like I have a special talent or skill. I'm not a singer or an actor. I'm just a dude that got really lucky and got on a TV show and fell in love, and I'm that same dude.
Yeah.
And I know I get to experience a lot of wonderful things, and I get to travel, and I have all these great opportunities, but I'm still the same guy.
Right.
And luckily for me, I've got great friends and family that keep me grounded and let me know that I'm still the same guy. So. Same guy, same morals, same character, and now I just have a smoking hot wife to go along with it.
And a book on the New York Times bestsellers list.
Yeah, who would have thought that? Not me. Just a couple years ago, I'm selling insurance, not really enjoying life, and now I'm traveling the country, and I have a New York Times best-selling book. It's really amazing.
We touched upon some of the things that you talked about in the book, but what else do your fans have to look forward in reading this?
Well, it's not just Bachelor content. Of course, for the Bachelor fans, I wanted to put a ton of behind-the-scenes stuff, and I wanted to answer all the questions I get on a daily basis. And I think there's some really cool tidbits in there. But it's also my story. Right. I think so often people just glance at our Instagram or see us on TV, and they think, like, these guys are perfect. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. They have the perfect relationship, and I want people to know that's not the case. Like, I've had a lot of trials and tribulations in my life, and I've overcome a lot of difficulties, and I've had a lot of hardships, and I've stayed true to what I know is right throughout the whole process. And I think, honestly, that's why I've had success as being The Bachelor, is because I went into it kind of confident in who I was as a man, and I think I came out that same man. And
nice.
And like I said, I came out with a smoking hot wife.
Yeah.
And
you kept your integrity. Which...
And I tried my best to keep my integrity. And so I tell the story of all that in there. And so far, I've just been blown away by the response we've gotten.
Yeah. Congratulations.
I was really hoping when I wrote it, I wanted it to answer the Bachelor questions, but I also wanted people to be left feeling inspired, and that's exactly what I've heard, which is amazing.
That's great.
And I'm glad so many people are kind of connecting and relating to my story.
That's huge. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing your story with the world, from The Bachelorette to The Bachelor. Can't forget Dancing with the Stars, and now the book. Real quick, this season, who do we think the front runners are?
So we're down to 3.
We're down to 3.
And I have the blonde. Who's the blonde?
Whitney.
Sorry, I'm terrible with names. I think she's my front runner.
Yeah.
And I say that because for some reason she seems like the only one that could actually live life on a farm in Iowa. That's a tall task.
Yeah.
We were talking off camera that you have 25 women, but how many of those women are really capable of moving to a rural area in Iowa. Whitney kind of gives me those vibes that maybe she could handle it. So
I'm feeling that too.
My vote is Whitney, and she seems sweet. She seems down to earth. I think Chris enjoyed himself in the beginning. He made out with a lot of them, and he was having fun, and of course, that's his prerogative. But I think she seems like a girl that he could really get serious with and settle down with. So my vote's for Whitney.
So Sean Lowe predicting Whitney.
Whitney for the win, yeah.
And as the next Bachelorette?
I'm going with the Canadian, Caitlin. Thank you.
Caitlin? That's my guess, too.
I've got Catherine off camera telling me the names.
I got Caitlin, too.
Here's the thing. Caitlin, I hate to say it this way, she seems like the only choice.
I agree.
I think she's funny. I think she has a great personality.
She's outspoken.
She's going to be entertaining.
Yeah.
I don't think she has like the wholesome good girl nature to her, but I think that's okay. I think people will tune in to watch her say some pretty outlandish, ridiculous things. I
agree. All right, well, you guys heard it here first. Sean Lowe predicting Whitney to win, Caitlin to be the next Bachelorette. Again, don't forget to get his book in stores now for the right reasons. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Don't forget, again, hit me up on social media at Jeff_Thurm. Sean Lowe?
Sean Lowe 09 on Twitter.
All right, thanks, guys. This has been Reality Reunion. Thank you so much for tuning in.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.